To our Monday Soul Deliciousness. I am so excited for you to be here. I'm going to give you a second to hop on. We are doing a super awesome giveaway. I'm actually going to announce it twice because I'm not excited for it. So here's the dealio. It is the time of the year to give, and it is the time of the year to recognize that for some of us, it's a really tough spot because we want to be happy. We want to be joyful. That's what we're taught the holidays are for. But for a lot of us, if you've lost a loved one or maybe you're financially having some issues like this, can be a real Debbie Downer. It can be really, really hard. So I'm going to show you two things and give you the opportunity to win one of them. I did two different ones because I feel like kind of depending on where you might be, one would benefit you more than another. And I also want to caveat that if you think that you would like to gift one of these as well or get one for yourself, because there's nothing like gifting to yourself, message me. I'll give you a super awesome coupon so you can get these at 25% off. But I'm going to start doing giveaways. They're going to be bi-weekly, so you can enter to win, and then I will mail these awesome things to you if you happen to be the winner. So how do you do this? Simply subscribe to my YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Comment on one of my videos of your choice. Share the video to your social media and then tag moi so that I can see that you did it, so that I can enter you in. So what are we going to be giving away? This one is, these are from Nature Sunshine, a company that I absolutely love. By the way, I'm just going to put in a little plug here. Know that when you eat food or you do anything that has been somewhere else, guys, everything has a vibrational energy, and food can actually absorb vibrational energies. And if, let's say, a person was harvesting something and they were going through a really big trauma, they can actually transfer that energy onto the food and you can eat it. 100% proven, quantum physics. So I love this company because of their morals, where they get their product from. They put a lot of extra stuff into it that they don't legally have to. So it's also local to me, and I just love them. So Open Heart is for this time of the year or any time of the year. This one I feel like is for if you've been really, really just emotionally taken through the mud puddle. This one helps if you are feeling really emotionally closed off. You're trying to protect yourself. This is for releasing and allowing yourself to be loved, allowing people to comfort you. So they're both kind of grief associated. This one is release. It's letting go of the past, lifting burdens, and clearing away emotional distress. So really amazing. And I'm going to gift one of these to one of you. You can give it away if you would like to someone else if you win. So there we go. All right. We're going to talk about sabotage patterns. And as always, guys, I like to bring this to you at a deeper thinking level than you may have ever looked at, because that's what I'm all about. This is not about, popping on here and just rambling on. I want you to like really get into the meat and potatoes of, wow, this is how we change. This is how we change what's going on. So number one is why. Well, maybe you may not even be aware that you're sabotaging yourself. So that's the number one thing, is like take a step back and think, am I in some kind of a pattern where I feel like nothing ever plays out for me? That's kind of like the real one to sort of look at. Or if you feel like you're in that mindset of this is always happening to me, then you should definitely consider the fact that you have some self-sabotaging patterns going on. Don't beat yourself up. We all do it. And I'm going to explain to you why. So why do I keep self-sabotaging? It's a pattern because of what you believe. So easy enough. If we change what we believe, we stop the pattern. Okay. And once we stop the pattern, then we can create a new pattern, a more beautiful one which allows us to stop self-sabotaging, one that allows us to progress, one that allows us to bring in whatever beautiful thing it is that we want to bring in. So how do we do this? I want you to think about it as you have what is called an upper limit or an upper threshold or an upper boundary. And we always have an upper boundary and we always have a lower boundary. And we're super content somewhere in between these two boundaries. And we have these boundaries for everything. We have these boundaries for chaos. We have these boundaries for how tired we allow ourselves to get. So for me, like I'm going to tell you that, I have a spot where I'm going to allow myself to get so tired, right? If I don't set the appropriate threshold limit for that, where it's a healthy spot that I realize that I need to get some extra sleep, then I will potentially make it so that I'm at a point where I have a migraine before I am like, whoa, I should probably get some more sleep. Or I can overdo it and I can never get out of bed, right? And I can sleep too much. And so there's a space in between where I am going to recognize that I need to get some sleep because I start not feeling well. And there's also a space in between where I realize that I'm getting too much sleep or I'm not getting out of bed, right? And so adjusting and realizing where these limits are how we stop ourselves from getting into a space that we don't want to be in. So you can change these limits. They're just there and you probably don't even know that they're there. So think about it. Think about money. Is there a point where you would get a certain amount of money and you would just be spending it like crazy until you got to a specific spot? And then you would be like, whoa. And then you would start freaking out that you were going bankrupt or that you didn't have enough in your account and you would stop spending, right? There's like a space in there that's really comfortable for you that you're spending money and it's okay. But if you have, a limit that you reach, for some of us, it's like nothing in your bank account. For some of us, it's like minus a certain amount. For other people that are good at saving, they might be like, oh, I never let my bank account get below this specific amount. So those are the types of limits that I'm talking about. The problem is that sometimes we have a limit where we're like, oh, anything over $500 and I feel like I have tons of money and I just spend uncontrollably. Or if $500 is kind of your limit, you're going to not allow yourself to really get much more than that, because that's a limit that you have where you're like, oh, I'm successful if I have $500. Then you shall be successful with $500, and $500 is all your little subconscious mind is going to allow you to have, because that is a limitation that you set for yourself. Okay. So you can also do this with things like chaos. I'm completely guilty of this one, where it's like, oh, I get too comfortable and there's nothing crazy going on. And so I may or may not create a confrontation with someone because I get an adrenaline rush off of having a confrontation. That's not a good behavior, right? But I know that I've done it before, even in relationships. Or if you are used to having abusive confrontational relationships, then when you get in a good one and you get too close to one of these limits, like up here is being abused to the point where you're almost being hospitalized because that's kind of where you're used to going. And down here is being in a spot where for 2 weeks there's no confrontation at all. If you get to this point and you're like, oh, it's been too, like, there's not anything going on, you're going to start creating it so you can get yourself back into this equilibrium space. But then when the confrontation does start happening, you may not do anything until you're in a spot where it's a dangerous spot. Okay. So too much might get you too far. You might think of it as like, think about healthy. Can I feel too healthy? Absolutely. If you start feeling too healthy and that's not a normal space for you and it's outside of your limits, then guess what you're going to do? You hit it. You're going to start making yourself sick. For some of you, your threshold limit for being sick is so high because it's such an expectation for you to be feeling like you're partially dying then that's exactly where you go. So you got to change your limits. You got to change how you're feeling. So I want you to think of it like this is a great analogy. It's like adjusting a thermostat. Up and down and up and down and up and down it goes. Okay. So how many of you have people in your family that you all feel comfortable at different levels on the thermostat, right? So if you're like me, I'm going to set it where I know that the pipes in my house aren't going to freeze. It's what I would consider probably for myself moderately comfortable. For other people, it's probably perfectly comfortable, but I tend to run a little bit on the cold side. So if I had my way and energy was free, I would turn up the thermostat. But it's not. So knowing that, what am I going to say? Instead of keeping this huge, threshold, I'm going to shrink my threshold a little bit by putting on a pair of socks. Like I know that I can put on socks and it will help me be a lot warmer instead of adjusting this thermostat up and down all the time. So here's some other things. Like think about if you do this. If you get yourself to a spot where you're like, something bad just happened. Okay. So say you feel like you just had something happen to you and you would consider it to be bad luck. Let's use something simple like you got a flat tire on your car. What do you think happens if your thought is when you get a flat tire on your car of, oh, you know, every time something happens to me, every time something bad happens to me, then a whole bunch of other bad things happen to me. What did I just manifest for myself? Exactly that. So you may not think that you have that ability, but you do. And you're sending out a vibration that is an expectation of other things to happen bad for you. And so, hello, that's what you're going to get because we attract what we're putting out. And that's a form of self-sabotaging. What if you did it the opposite way? You're so good. Okay. If you're living in misery right now, I want you to ask yourself this. Wow, I am so good at living in misery. I have mastered it. So why can you not master the opposite? If you are manifesting and bringing yourself in all of this bad luck, all of this whatever, what if you could flip it around so that instead of creating that, you're creating positive for yourself? Now, don't get me wrong. Don't go flying off the handle. You can't live in a life without anything ever going your way. Like that's just not possible, right? We're all going to deal with stuff, but it's how your perception of that. So if something happens to me and I'm like, oh, hey, I got a flat tire. What can I do to make this so that this situation just happened for me instead of to me? And I don't even care what your reasoning is. I could be like, wow, maybe I got this flat tire because if I wouldn't have, I would have gotten a car accident. I don't know that that isn't true. Maybe I had to slow down. Maybe I got stopped for, a reason that I can't comprehend with my little human brain. So you can change any situation into a this happened for me instead of this happened to me. And you'll start going down, making that so that you are creating a positive instead of constantly creating negative for yourself. But Amy, I'm just being realistic. Okay, that is a word that you create based off of how you want your reality to be. Realistic doesn't to realistic means nothing. There is nothing actually honestly truthful about realistic. That is a huge made up word. And I will probably say that looking back in my life, I'm one of the most hooked into the word of I'm just being realistic as anybody ever could be. For example, this will horrify some of you. When I was pregnant with Kinley and I knew that she had a heart defect, at the time, Dave and I worked at a cemetery. It is the cemetery in the town where we both grew up. And it is also the cemetery where his first wife is buried. And so he has a headstone there. And I told him that I wanted to decide where we would bury our daughter if she passed away. And people were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, being realistic. because I knew that that was a possibility and I didn't want to have to think about that when the time came. So maybe not so much of a negative thing, because it did help me be prepared, because that is what happened. And I didn't have to try to plan on where I was going to bury her when I was grieving. But at the same time, we can get ourselves into this really bad place where we're like, oh, I have to be realistic. Nowadays, I'm not realistic about anything because I am creating my own reality. And I can still look at the situation with her and take that to another level of really understanding life and death on a non peon human brain level, right? Because when it comes down to it, is it super hurtful? Absolutely. Does it tarnish your soul? Absolutely. But is there more to it than that? Absolutely. And it's just that we have a really difficult time having faith in being able to see past, our physical selves and the emotions that we get into. So let's do 3 ways that we can really work on breaking the sabotage cycle. Okay. So one is looking back over things. If you've been watching lately, I keep posting these cool journal prompts because I like to call it noodling. And noodling is like a brain dump, only you are calling it noodling because, I live with my inner child. So I like to call it noodling. So I'm posting things on weekdays that are like affirmations, like what does this affirmation bring up for you? Do you feel like you have an emotional block to accepting it? If it feels really uncomfortable, noodle why, without restriction, without judgment, without anybody ever reading your paper. Like, why is this feeling like this? Toxic phrases, anything like that. Okay. And that will help you look back and say, okay, why do I feel this way about this specific phrase? Why do I feel this way about this specific negative thought? So you're kind of looking back in your life to help determine where your self-sabotage zones are. Like, where do I get where I'm like, oh, I'm losing too much weight. I've never made it past 150 pounds before. So now that I see that coming up on the scale and I don't know how to accept that, what am I going to do? Right? I'm going to dive bomb and I'm going to give up and start eating because I don't know how to accept seeing 150 pounds on the scale, or I don't know how to accept something good happening to me, because when I get an opportunity, instead of, saying to myself, wow, thank you, I did a great job, I start self-sabotaging. Actually, I wrote this down. It was really good. Where did I put it? It reminded me of something. I don't know where it is, but it's something along the lines of, someone says something to you. Oh, here we go. I see it. How do you respond to people? So when someone tells you, so let's say that this is a good one for self-sabotaging when you become successful. When someone tells you, oh my gosh, congratulations on getting this blah, 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 whatever, promotion. And then how does that make you feel? Do you say something like, thank you, I worked really hard to get where I am. I'm glad to see that it's paying off. Or are you like, holy crap, that's really selfish. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, well, I just got lucky. Because you're taught that accepting, if that second one feels really good to you and the first one doesn't, somewhere when you look back, your limitations were created based off of someone telling you that being successful should make you feel guilty. Because what? You don't want to become conceited. You don't want to become arrogant. You don't want to be better than everybody else. And so you can't accept success because of this past agreement that you've made based off of some kind of thing that has set these zones for you. So how do we do this without feeling that way? Well, number one, we find gratitude, right? We just live in a space of gratitude. So I'm very thankful for my success. I accept my success and I am thankful for it. Leaning into it. So that means that when you start, so let's say that I just get notified right after this that I'm being picked up for some like awesome sauce thing. Okay. So if I start reading into that and then I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to be featured on blah, blah, blah. And then my ego starts kicking in and is like, who do you think you are? You don't deserve that. You've never done anything to blah, 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 blah. Right. Well, if I listen to my ego, then when I'm going to do, I'm going to start feeling really yucky inside. I'm going to start self-doubting. I'm going to not be able to perform to, whatever success I'm destined to have. And so leaning into it means that before it starts chatting to the point that I can't shut it off and it's like squashing me down, I'm going to lean back into it. So as my ego starts talking, I'm going to lean into it and be like, oh, yeah, let me tell you. And it's almost like talking back to yourself with a little bit of an attitude and say, like, look here, I worked really hard at this. So that's what I'm talking about when you kind of lean back into those voices that you're hearing. Give it a little bit of its own medicine and lean back into it. And eventually it quiets down and it becomes not as loud as you are when you first feel these feelings of being like, wow, I am successful. And that little voice starts chatting. You get louder than the little voice and you're able to, sort of train it to take a back seat and to hush up. So understanding where those thresholds are, recognizing what you're doing and leaning in so that you can start to change it. What a beautiful process, right? So give it a shot. Think about something that potentially you're doing to self-sabotage and try those things. So recognize the zone. You can do it with anything. Recognize the zone. It can be emotions, money, your behaviors towards other people, abundance, whatever. So recognize where they are, then start changing them and lean into stuff. Because when you're too far either way, it's not healthy. So just find that space where you're like, oh, this is good. You don't want to over anything. And then just start kind of leaning into it and recognizing, understanding, and changing is how that works. Okay, so once again, I'm going to remind you of this awesome giveaway that we're doing. So open heart or release it. These are for just emotional releasing, ability to love, suppressing, if you're suppressing emotions. One of them specific for grieving, past emotional distress. So if you win and you know someone that can benefit from this, you can happily give it to them as well. So you just go to my YouTube, subscribe, comment in any of my videos, share whichever video you would like, and then tag so that I know that you did it. I also have some other awesome thing I want to tell you about. Oh my gosh, you guys, so much stuff going on this month. I should have made a banner for it, but I didn't. 2 Zoom calls that if you are a practitioner, a healing practitioner, you'll want to jump onto one of them. The other Zoom call is a free energy healing session where we're all going to get together on Zoom and I'm going to pick one of you and show you how energy healing works. And I'll also do some for the entire group. So if you can't see my post for that and it's hidden in my page somewhere, just message me and I'll send you the link for it, whichever one resonates with you. Also, you'll start noticing that on TikTok, I've been doing these cool little affirmations, energy releases or whatnot, and I'm posting them into my story. So if you're on TikTok, you can follow me, or I'm posting them onto Facebook and my Instagram story. So I'm doing one a day, but they're really cool. So you can just relax and melt with me and accept the affirmation and the energy. And then last but not least, I'm really excited to tell you that I am really bipolar. And no, but really, I can go from light love and peace for everyone to I'm going to rip your face off in about 20 seconds flat. And that is just who I am. Okay. And I accept that and I work with it. And I've used it to create some great boundaries, right? I will help everyone. If people take advantage of me, I do not hate you, but I will not allow you to suck away my energy. So even today, I was like, ooh, I have some saboteur energy to get rid of. And it like hit me right in the back, like someone was stabbing me. And I was like, who is this? And I figured out who it was because I channeled in and I could see who it was. And some past people must have been gossiping or talking poorly about me or whatever. And that energy can affect you. And so I released it, but I did with gratitude. I did with gratitude to send that energy back to them in a positive way for them to have a healthy, happy holiday. And most people are like, what? Somebody's sitting around talking poorly about you and you sent them good vibes. Absolutely. The laws of universal energy come into play. You never want to be sending anyone anything negative, even if they are being negative to you, because that is not how it works. So, but on this podcast, we're not going to roast people, but we're definitely going to show the sassier side of myself. And my BFF is joining me. I'm really excited. I'm not going to say the name of it yet or anything because we're working on all the little details of it, but we do have a launch date. So I will tell you when the very first one is coming out. It's going to be on December 17th. We will launch our first podcast, and it will be, like I said, it's me and my BFF. She's not quite as out there as I am yet. She has no idea what she's getting herself into. So I'm not gonna introduce her yet, but she is probably maybe a step up. Maybe if we were salsa, I would probably be mild hot. She's gonna be hot spicy. Okay, so we make a really good pair, and our conversations are hilarious, and so that's why we decided that we would just record them and let you listen to them without any filters. So there we go. All right, guys. So happy Monday. I'll see you, I'm sure, before then, but if not, I'll see you next Monday for another Soul Deliciousness. And reach out to me if there's anything I can do to help you. And I'm sending you lots of beautiful vibes.